Hey there, I'm Sophia Hernandez, and today we are speaking to a woman who is beauty, brains, with a love for bathing suits. Today in the spotlight is Amy Machado. So first, for those who don't know you, can you tell them a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're at, what you're doing?
Yeah, so I am born and raised in Miami. I'm a triplet, which is not the norm.
I did not know that.
I was,
Oh my gosh, you just taught me something new. I had no idea.
yeah, I have a brother and a sister. They both stayed at home for college. They go to University of Miami, and I left. I went to Georgetown, which is where I'm at now, and I'm a government major, French minor, going to law school next year. But passion project wise, I launched a swimwear company the summer after my freshman year at Georgetown, and that's what I've been doing since.
We'll talk
Alamea.
about the Alamea in a little bit, but let's talk about first school-wise. That's kind of an interesting thing to study, government and minor in French. Did you always have a passion for both?
Yeah, so I started speaking French or learning French in high school, and I mean, coming from Miami, Spanish was already a language that I knew, and I wanted to learn something different. And I figured I'm already at this level where I'm like in an in-between where I'm not fluent, but I'm not, I know enough French. So when I got to Georgetown, I wanted to keep going, and it just naturally happened that I was taking so many classes anyways that I figured why not just minor in it. And then government, I honestly, I knew I wanted to come to law school, and government seemed like the right option. I personally have loved taking government classes here at Georgetown. We're in the, nation's capital, perfect place for it. The professors here at Georgetown are absolutely phenomenal. I do not regret my decision at all. I have had the privilege of learning from some of the most renowned professors. So it's been really amazing to learn from them.
Yeah.
But I know it has nothing to do with swimwear. I just, academically, I think I've always put school first. I've always been like the nerdy girl in a sense.
Been there.
So
That's me.
I do prioritize school always. But I also do really, really think it's important to have a balance, especially at a school as competitive as Georgetown. We get sucked into this culture of, what club are you in? What internships are you at? What job are you lined up for? And it always kind of takes my friends aback when I tell them, I'm not doing an internship this summer or things like that. I was never that person that, took the summer for an internship because I was always working on my brand or things like that. And those things sound impressive as well, but they're not the typical trajectory that you would take at Georgetown.
Right.
Because my fellow gov majors will be doing an internship on the Hill or working for their local senator and things like that. And I'm not doing those things. So it's very hard not to compare yourself at a school like Georgetown because you see all these people really going places academically. And obviously I try my best to also succeed academically, but I do really, really, really prioritize health and wellness. And I do really prioritize, fostering whatever you're passionate about. If I am passionate about something totally unrelated to my major, I'm going to try my hardest to make that happen.
Yeah. And I know too, because obviously we're friends and we follow each other, and I see that you are, as you said, very passionate about health and wellness. You used to teach, or you're an instructor for yoga. Do you teach as active anymore, or what's? Can you tell people a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I started Georgetown, I honestly, it was kind of funny how it happened. I was a competitive dancer in high school, and I was always very active and loved to exercise, things like that. When I get to Georgetown, I did not know anyone. If you ask anyone where they're from here, it's probably New Jersey, Connecticut. I don't know why there's so many people from the States, but I was one of two people that I knew from Miami. I knew one girl from Miami. She was a senior when I was a freshman.
Oh, wow.
So luckily I had a kind of mentor thing with her. She was my big sister in high school, actually. But
so funny. Oh, that's Crazy.
Other than that, I had no one in my class. Like, you know, in my direct class, I had no one. I was alone. My roommate was someone that I was paired up with, like mutually. We had mutual friends, but I really essentially had no one. And
What
when I
was that
started
like? Because I know for
school,
people too,
that
like
first,
traveling, you know, people that are not traveling, but people that go to school away, that is a very intimidating thing. Like even now, me, you know, like thinking of next steps, you know, living in a different place that I don't know anybody, it's intimidating. It's a very intimidating thought.
I thought it was very exciting, especially being a triplet. I was very accustomed to being packaged with my siblings, and you know, everything would always be the triplets or go to the Machado's house, not Annie or Sophie or Carly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I never felt like I had interactions on a one-to-one basis. I was really, really excited to, for the first time, be on my own. I had never been 1 week, more than 1 week without my siblings. I had never done that in my life. So I was really excited to just do something really different and meet people on my own and like have people get to know me before they realized I had siblings. Obviously love my siblings, but I wanted that experience to finally do something on my own for me, which was super exciting. When I did get to Georgetown, obviously very scary. I remember my mom came for like 2 days longer than all the other parents did, and I felt really bad because she was by herself. My dad couldn't come, so I stayed with her in the hotel. And inside, I was kind of like freaking out. You know, I'm missing these 4 essential first days in the dorms. Everyone's meeting each other. So my first night in the dorms, I made brownies, and I basically knocked on everyone's door on my floor. Like, I just made brownies. Like, let's go hang out.
Want a snack? I'll be your friend.
Yeah, I was like, the whole floor came out, and I made a friend group that night, and we were basically a little group. Like, we did not move from that group for a whole year, honestly. Obviously, things changed. We went to different dorms later, and some of us drifted, some of us stayed really close. But that was really exciting that everyone that I was coming across, I was meeting for the first time. Everyone was coming from all over the world, just like, you know, had all these different really cool experiences. Some of them had taken a gap year in Southeast Asia. Like, I just felt really, I still all the time, I'm like wowed by like the friends that I have here, and I feel very like honored that I got to come to this kind of school and meet these kinds of people.
For you coming from, because I think I have a lot of discussions about this with friends of mine, you know, that they kind of have similar trajectories, not the same school, but they've either gone to work in a completely different city across the US or in a different country, you know, and it is, I feel like when we live, and again, not all of our listeners are from Miami, but when you are from Miami, it's this bubble, right? Even though it's a huge city, you're bound to know somebody that knows someone else, and everyone's kind of in that same bubble, so to speak. And then when you branch out and you meet all these people with different life experiences, what was that like for you? Because a lot of people in Georgetown are from up north, you know, and way of life there is so different than down south.
Yeah, and honestly, I also have a lot of friends that are completely international, like my best friends from Dubai. And that's also very different. For me, it very much is a bubble, Miami, and you realize that the minute you get here, because just every little thing that I was accustomed to, whether it's like speaking in Spanglish or just, I don't know, the way I carry myself.
Yes.
I had a lot of people tell me right away that you could tell I was from Miami.
I get that too. People tell me they like, you have an accent. I'm like, what? I don't have an accent, but I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. But like everyone has an accent, because then I come here and I hear people from the Midwest really elongating their words, and it's just funny to compare. But I think that the harder part was not me adjusting to the way of life here. It was coming back home, because I was pretty much the only one out of my friends that left. So coming back home, it's kind of like, you know, you have the people that make fun of you for all of a sudden speaking a little more elongated and pronounced.
Right.
Because again, you kind of imitate what your associating with.
Right.
And of course, after a couple days back in Miami, I'm back to speaking at a mile a minute. But it is funny because they make fun of me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, like I don't know what to say, but these are the people I'm hanging out with, and that's what happens. But I think that they are the ones that are not used to seeing a changed version of me, because I have changed. I have, you know, associated myself with people from all parts of the country and the world, and did a complete 180 when I got to Georgetown freshman year to now. I feel like I've completely changed, and I honestly, I like it. I like the new version of me. I think that the new version of me is just kind of me learning from the friends that I've made from different parts of the world and the country, and you really can't substitute that for anything. Like, I'm not gonna just go home and revert to what I was in high school in Miami just because that would be more the norm, you know?
But and it's probably a grown version too, right? It's like Annie Machado 2.0, but it's not a different necessarily. It's just you've grown into yourself probably more because of those life experiences.
I actually spent 6 months in Australia last year studying abroad, and I felt like that was kind of my turning point. Like, I remember thinking one day there, wow, like I have never felt more like myself than I do right now.
Yeah. I had a similar thing. I lived in Florence, not for 6 months. I would have loved 6 months. I did 3 months, and it was that for me. Like, that to me, I always joke now that if I could ever go back, take a sabbatical from my life and just live there for 2 years, like, sign me up. I'm there in a heartbeat, you know? Like, I want to go back so bad, because it's just different. It's a different way of life, and it's not the pace of life that we just have here in the States. You know, it's just different completely, the culture.
A different culture towards work and life balance and everything.
Do you feel like that has affected you? Because when did your yoga journey start? And then we'll kind of talk into swimwear. So talk a little bit about the yoga, because I remember seeing in COVID, it almost, I felt like took off. Like, I was like, is she now like, is yoga the new thing? Like, what is this?
Yeah, basically when I got to Georgetown, I didn't know anyone, which is, I totally remember now why I was drifting off.
No, you're good. You're good. That's what these are. They're conversations. We go on one end and go off the other. You're good.
Yeah. But basically, I didn't know anyone. I loved exercising. I get to Georgetown, and when I met everyone on my floor, I realized, wow, the majority of my friends are boys. So I really wanted to, you know, have a hobby and get into something, get into a routine, and be able to, you know, time manage effectively. So I go to a yoga studio nearby called Core Power Yoga, and I was hooked. The first class, I was hooked. The very next week, I signed up for teacher training. And
what?
I don't know.
Had you ever done yoga before or no?
Well, I had done yoga a couple times. I was by no means an avid yogi. Like, I was a dancer. Very similar, like in terms of muscles and movements, but no, I was not an avid yogi. I went to one yoga class at Core Power. The next week I signed up for teacher training. And so teacher training was pretty intense. I did a yoga sculpt training, which is basically power yoga with hand weights added, cardio bursts, lunges.
Wow.
Very deadly.
Sounds intense.
But yeah, it's very intense. But I did that. So basically, after class, I would go to Core Power hours a day, do my training, finally got certified that winter, started teaching, taught for almost like maybe a semester. When I started to do another training, I did my 200-hour training, which certified me to also teach your regular vinyasa yoga. And then I kind of just took off from there. I really, really enjoyed teaching at Core Power. Lots of the instructors there are, I was probably the youngest, but like, you know, people in law school and a little bit older,
right.
Lots of them were women, and lots of them were practicing law. So my two worlds were colliding because I knew I wanted to practice law. And it was kind of my way of, you know, I'm going to get my workout in today anyways. Why not do that and also help other people get their workout in? I kind of found my voice doing that, I think, like in terms of every aspect, because I, as a triplet, I think leaned on, I've always been very outspoken, but I think that I leaned on my siblings a lot. We leaned on each other because, that. And I think teaching yoga is where I really found my voice. You're commanding a room to do what you're telling them.
Yeah.
And so I really fell in love with it, loved the creativity of sequencing a class, loved, having people come up to me after saying they liked my playlist or they really liked what I did. And so I kept teaching. Every time I'd go home to Miami, I'd teach in Miami. And then I went to Australia, found 2 yoga jobs there, met like all the locals that way. Then I came back, COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I was out of a job because Core Power closed down. It's still closed actually. And I just didn't know what to do. For me, I don't really need, I live with my parents at home. Like I don't necessarily need to have this job, but it was my job, it was my spending money, my income kind of thing. And I didn't have it anymore. So when COVID hit, it wasn't only that, but it was also everyone's kind of in a slump. They don't know what to do. They're just kind of like sitting around all day. And I wanted like a chance to still see my friends, still get my workout in, I missed teaching, and also just make people feel better. And so I started with a group of other Core Power instructors teaching online, and it kind of sent off. Like from the first class, I had like 200 people join, and it was $3 a class. I was still doing all the same things I would at Core Power. And so people just really, really loved it. The feedback was amazing. And some people were just saying, I can't make it to those time slots. So then I started also recording myself doing them. And that was a way for me to also, work out with my dad, who really loved being in the recordings.
I love those videos. Those are great.
They're so fun. And so, yeah, I got really great feedback from it. People really enjoyed it. So I tried to make as many as possible. Eventually got to the point where I couldn't continue because it just got to a point of COVID where we had been in it so long and people were just giving up on either maybe they were trying to go back to the gym or they just couldn't do the screen time anymore.
Yeah.
But I really do miss teaching yoga. I'm currently on a pause because there's nowhere to teach, but I still do it for myself, which is good.
For people who are interested in possibly teaching themselves, I know it's like it is an intimidating process because you have to go through like that training, that I think people are like, I don't know if I want to do it. Like, am I really that committed? For somebody that's wanting to take that first step, what's some advice for them?
I mean, it is intimidating, and I didn't know anyone there either. And for me, it was more so just. It's so cheesy. I always think back to that movie. What was it called? We Bought a Zoo. I don't know if you've seen it. I love. I remember it was my senior quote in high school because I love the idea that he said it just takes 20 seconds. Like if you just think about something, if you just give yourself 20 seconds to do something insanely courageous, then like everything will change, It just takes 20 seconds. So for me, it was kind of just, I'm very impulsive. I jump right in because if I give myself time to think, I will back out. Yeah. So, that goes with every area of life, like skydiving, things like that. Like, I just don't give myself time to think. I do it. Obviously, in moderation.
I wish I was like, I feel like I'm definitely an overanalyzer. I'm more of a practical, realistic person. I mean, I'm very, like, I feel like there's a duality to me. I'm very creative and ambitious, and I know I'm very much like I know what I like and what I don't like. So like if I like it, I go and run with it, you know. But if I don't like it or if I'm on like the edge, I'm like, okay, let's pause, let's think it through, let's let it marinate a little bit. That's kind of how my brain works. But there are circumstances where I wish I was more impulsive, where I would be like, let's just do it. Are you? No, I'm a Taurus.
Okay, I'm a Gemini, so I always say I am very much a dual person. I definitely have a duality to me. I, on the one hand, am an overthinker. Yes, I freak out about a lot of things. But on the other side, I'm very, very impulsive. Like when it comes to shopping, when it comes to adventures, anything. Like if I need to be scared, I'll be scared while I'm doing it. But other than that, obviously that has its pros and cons. Sometimes you do something impulsively and it doesn't work out, but you never know. So
and
yeah, I mean, if someone's trying to get into yoga or something like that, I would just say jump right into it, because you don't know what's going to come of it. I didn't know that I was going to be a good yoga teacher, let alone come out a yoga teacher, and I found the experience to be super rewarding. I actually really loved yoga, and I really lean on it a lot for mental health and physical health throughout a day where I'm stuck here during quarantine, doing school online, or like really busy running errands for my swimsuits. Like you need that hour to yourself.
Yeah. Let's talk about Alamea, because was that an impulsive decision? Was it something that had marinated for a while? Like, what was the process of that?
That one marinated. That one wasn't impulsive. So yeah, I told you I've been a very academic person, never really thought about like indulging my hobbies. I really only thought career-wise, I will be a lawyer, I will do this kind of thing. But when I was little, I was really obsessed with fashion. I was very much an outspoken little girl. Like I would roll my pajama shirts into crop tops and do the Just Dance on the Wii. Like that's how I would do it, in a rolled up pajama shirt.
I love that.
I was very.
That is a look. That's yeah. On brand. That's what that is.
I was like 5 years old, but yeah. And so when I started school, I went to St. Teresa for elementary school, for those listeners in Miami. And I had little sketchbooks where I would draw like designs, like mostly bathing suits, but I would do some clothing, and I would get a color pencil and color in what color I wanted and things like that. And I had 2 sketchbooks. I would bring them to school with me every day, and then put them under my lunchbox at recess, go play, bring them back upstairs. And one day, I had to have been in like 1st grade. Someone stole my sketchbooks. I never found those again, never saw them again. Don't know who would steal my sketchbooks in 1st grade, but I was heartbroken, didn't do anything with it after that. But I actually thought the designs were pretty good, and I thought it was just, a funny hobby. I really always just liked fashion, and obviously growing up in Miami, loved bikinis, so I would just draw my favorite kinds, take elements that I liked of one, elements that I liked of other, and make my perfect bikini. In high school, life went on, and I was a junior. I was visiting Boston College with my dad, and we were in the hotel, and we started laughing about how I used to draw sketchbooks, and I said, yeah, I would love to have my own bikini brand, just kind of shooting that out there.
On a whim, yeah.
And he's very, he's very, very entrepreneurial, my dad, and he's a lawyer, but he loves to like think about business ideas and things like that. And he goes, well, if you really want to, like, I'll invest in that idea. Like, I will help you get that started. Like, you should look into who you like, manufacturers and things like that. So I kind of got inspired that trip. I started sketching away the whole trip. One particular sketch I remember was one that I loved when I was little. I just like kind of recreated it. It fell through. I didn't find the people that I need to find. Fast forward 2 years, I'm coming home from my first year at Georgetown. We're in the Bahamas, family trip, and he mentions it again, and I was like, well, I never found people the last time. He re-inspires me to look it up again. I end up finding people. Finding a factory, finding manufacturers, things like that. So I send them my sketches, and we get it done. I launched my first collection the spring of my sophomore year, so probably a year after I launched the company. And yeah, from there, so the Allison one piece, I don't know if you've seen it. It's the blue one piece with
love that one piece. I'm like, that's the one that's like, I keep putting it in my cart, and I'm like waiting to it's like so cute. For those who haven't seen it, you need to look.
Yeah, that one piece was the one out of that collection that I drew when I was 8 years old.
Listen, you knew when you were 8, because that is the cutest one piece I think.
I was a sassy girl. Sassy girl. Like, what was I doing a very low cut bathing suit?
with pom poms. It had its own little, sass to it. I love it. I love it. Talk a little bit about, because I think, one thing is you have your sketches, right? You have this creative idea, you have the designs, but how do you make those designs go from paper to an actual product? So talk about the connections and having to find those manufacturers, the factories, like what is that process?
So that was very much an interesting story for me personally, because I don't, I know a lot of people that have swimwear brands that they had connects from the very beginning, and they knew people and they had the money and things like that, whereas I didn't. So I had my dad who was willing to invest in me, but I had absolutely no previous experience in the swimwear industry, had no connections. And the one really, really big thing is that, especially in a place like Miami, with a very, very saturated swimwear industry, it's very competitive, and it's very much everyone for themselves. So even those people that I knew that worked at a store that sold swimwear, things like that, it was very secretive, very vague. They wouldn't give you advice. It's very much everyone for themselves. So no one's really there to help you. No one. So I really was on my own, just Googling like swimwear manufacturers, things like that. And the interesting part is that for my first collection, I love the first collection. I won't ever regret it. But I made countless mistakes. Like, I know people make mistakes their first time around, but this was different. This was like colossal. So I manufactured in Colombia, and it was through a middleman company in New York. That was the big mistake, because rather than me directly talking to the people in Colombia, it was a middleman company that was upcharging everything. So I was a brand with no name yet, and they were making me order 1,000 units of suits. 1,000. So and it was very expensive, and then the shipping from Colombia it was a loss. It was not a profit, it was a loss. But I mean, of course I'm grateful, because if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have learned anything about the swimwear industry. Right. But I did learn that, no one's really there to give you the right advice. They're there, if you find these people, they're obviously wanting you to do business with them. So I thought that was really the only way to do it. Also, working through a middleman company, I was very shunned from my own process. So I did sketch the bathing suits. I sketched the design, and I wanted the colors and things like that. But other than that, I was very shunned. Like, I would be shown things via email, like, do you like this hang tag? Kind of like that. And like I was sent samples, but I was very shunned from the design process and didn't really know the intricacies and like what goes into designing a label. So after this collection launches, I had 1,000 units and no brand name yet. Like, I had no presence. So I tried my best. And then I kind of just, after a year, I was very discouraged. Like, I thought to myself, I think this is it. Like, I think that was my run, and I have to give up because I just lost so much money, and I just don't know what to do with myself. I was very discouraged, very disappointed in myself. I was in a rut. So around this time, I was starting my junior year, and I decided, I had my whole life thought I wanted to go to France to study abroad, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to the other side of the world. I'm going to Australia. So I went to Australia 6 months, and that was kind of, I've talked about this a lot about my second collection. That was kind of what inspired everything, my junior year, because I was going through a lot of life changes at this time. I had been dating someone for 1.5 years, and we had just broken up. I was doing all these things for the first time, meeting people, but this time in a different time zone, different continent, everything. So that was very much the break that I needed, because obviously if I'm in Australia, I can't really be tending to Alamea as much as I would in Miami or DC. Obviously I was on top of things, but I very transparently and honestly was not getting orders. I was not getting any more orders. I was not doing well. So I was kind of in this point where I thought I'm going to have to give up. And throughout Australia, I met a lot of people. I did a lot of crazy things that kind of just told me it wasn't over for me yet, because I kept finding myself still talking about my swimwear. I ended up doing one of the local markets in Australia, Glebe Market. I set up a table for Alamea, and cool. I sold only 3 suits, only 3 suits that day. But it was kind of my like reminder, like my push, like I'm not done with this. I still love it. And also, you know, being somewhere as cool and as different as Australia, and like traveling to those places around Australia, like Bali and Fiji and things like that, I was very much inspired by what I was surrounded by. So I got back and I had a couple months of school, then COVID hit. The day COVID hit, I said, you know what? I have all this free time and I am re-inspired, and I know that I can do this if I really, really, really set my mind to it. So I'm going to try again. And I had, of course, I've never stopped sketching. I was always still drawing things that I wanted. So the first day of COVID, I started. And I had already had the sketches, so I had been doing this since Australia, really. But a year later, it took me a whole year. And that's when I launched my second collection. I completely revamped everything. I am no longer working with the middleman company or with Columbia. I found everything locally. So this time around has been really the first time that I am completely in my design process. I am the reason for every single thing you see on those bathing suits. Like, I found a local factory. I found a local marketing agency to revamp my website. I go to downtown to buy my fabric. I buy my own trims. I go to Hialeah to get my spaghetti straps. I go to Medley to get my fabric printed on. I go to Tamiami Airport to go to the factory, like all very far places in Miami, but I am constantly just like back and forth doing everything. I have huge binders full of information. I have to, you know, it's just also, I didn't want to spend any more of anyone else's money. This was very much a me collection. Like, I really spearheaded this on my own. And the interesting thing is that obviously I am a startup. I'm a 21-year-old girl, don't have the resources to be hiring employees. It's very much a one-woman show. Luckily, my mom helps me when I'm in DC, and she'll ship out bathing suits for me. Like, I have a station there for her, and she knows exactly what to do to ship them out.
Right.
But other than that, it's a one-woman thing. I do the back end of my website. I do not know computer science. Don't know how I did that, but I do the back end. I not set it up, but I have to, when I have to change things, I do the back end. I obviously design the bathing suits. I'm the person in contact with the factory. I'm the person that does the email marketing, the social media marketing. I'm the person at the school, don't know. But I have to be the one calculating break-even points and how much I should price a bathing suit at for how much I paid for it and things like that. I just have, you know, every teensy role of a business that you would never think. I have to do all of it. So, of course, I love it. I love what I do. But it's difficult, and it's very rewarding this time around, like knowing what goes in. I have never known what goes into a bathing suit, why you pay what you pay. And you're essentially just paying for quality and for time and commitment, because, you know, you're paying for the fabric, the trim, the person sewing that, the print on the fabric, the hygiene liners, the cutaway labels, the hang tags, the packaging. Like, there's so much that goes into a bathing suit. And I've never really known that until now.
And I think too, what I love about listening to you talk about it is because I do think a lot of times, like, I had a jewelry business for a little bit, and I think a lot of times the clients, right, our customers, they forget that. They forget that there is so much that goes into that one thing that they're purchasing. Yeah. So many different people involved, right? Because it's not just you, it's the people that you buy it from, the hands that make it, the time that's spent to post it, to advertise it, to, you know, the shoots that you do, the models that wear the clothes, you know, like it's a process, and it's inspiring, I think, to hear too that it wasn't always rainbows and sunshine, because there are those ruts in any business, right, where you don't have any purchases being made and you do feel discouraged because you're like, okay, is it because people don't like it? Is it because I need to revamp? Like, there's those ruts that sometimes come with owning your own business. How have you been able, do you think, to, you know, in that time and in that season where you had that collection, you probably felt like, I don't want to do this anymore, and then you obviously did, and look where you're at now. What kind of got you through that process?
Yeah, I mean, I'm by no means now, like, obviously this collection has done a lot better than I could have ever imagined. I am still not where I want to be. You know, it's not profitable business yet. It's more still my passion project.
Right.
Hopefully I can get to that point, but I think that I needed the reset mentally of taking some time for myself and prioritizing just everything else that I wanted to do, my mental, physical health, which was basically mostly Australia and the beginning of COVID. I needed that time to just take a step back, reevaluate, and say, do I actually want to do this still? And do I still love it? And I obviously loved it. And I just don't think you should give up on something you love until you know that there's like, you know, you've extended all your resources. I knew that I knew that I was capable of doing this, and I just needed to find the right people. And so I found one of the first companies that helped me was iShine 365.
Oh yeah.
They were the ones responsible for doing the back end of my website, like, you know, making my new website. And so they have a lot of my old collection still because they have been selling it in warehouse sales, discounted price. And they helped me a lot because with that money, I was able to start with the second collection. I found the right people. Like, I have a couple people in my life right now, business-wise, that I've really, really looked to for advice. And I think, again, it's kind of what your platform is all about. You just have to surround yourself with people that you can learn from and grow from, and that are there for you to support you, both obviously personally, emotionally, but business-wise, like that are there to support what your endeavors are, kind of thing. And I didn't always have those people, because the last collection I had, people that saw, I was 18 and 19 at the time, you know, they saw a 19-year-old naive girl with no experience in the business industry, and they took advantage of that. Like, they just walked all over me, and I let it happen because I had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
And now I'm not much older, I'm just 21, but I don't let that happen. Like, it's kind of made me be more assertive and say, no, like, you can't do that to me because I paid this or I signed this, you know? So I have learned a lot from this process, and I wish I would have learned a lot with a mistake that didn't cost so much money, but
sometimes that needs to happen, you know? Yeah, you gotta lose some to win some, right? You gotta go through those changes. Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not always
definitely. I think it was more just finding people to surround yourself with that supported what you were doing, because even friends, like, you know, some friends come and go, family obviously stays, but it's just, you know, some of my friends would say they supported me, but then talk about how my bathing suits were too expensive and things like that. And to me, it was kind of just, you know, I get it. Not everyone wants to spend too much on a bathing suit. I personally do because I love it. I love certain brands and things like that, but I get the expense thing. It's just sometimes it comes across, like you said, not many people realize what goes into it. And not many people realize that I'm a full-time student, yet, and have a job teaching yoga, yet spend every waking other hour on Alamea. I will wake up at 4 a.m. with an idea and start working on Alamea. It's just, I am constantly
and I
in
think,
swim mode.
Like, for somebody, me personally, I have no shame in saying, like, my mom will always joke, she's like, you're so cheap. And it's because I do. Like, I love thrifting. I love, like, if I don't have to spend a pretty penny, I won't. And I will be I've always been that way, like, very crafty in, you know, going to Goodwill, and I end up finding a designer dress and it cost me $5, you know, and I'm like, oh, great, we're taking it, you know, I'll fix the button and I'll tweak it, whatever, fine. But with things like this, where number one, I feel like it's a small business, right? Because it's just you. And it's the quality, because, you know, you're not buying something that was made oceans away. That's, you know, there's thousands upon thousands, if not millions, of that same product being manufactured. This is, you're talking about like a 1 in a 200 bathing suit, right? That is made with care, consideration, and with a careful eye. And that's really what you're paying for, because I do have to say, a lot of times people do look at that number and they probably are like, ugh, that's so expensive. I could get a $25 bathing suit at Target, right? But that $25 bathing suit at Target's not the same as that $75 Alamea, you know, one piece, or $100 one piece, you know, that's probably going to last you for years to come because the quality of it is so good.
Well, that's interesting that, I mean, obviously I'm all for shopping online. I love a good deal, things like that, just as much as the next college girl. But I will say that I always see, for example, I mean, I know a lot of things that come up with Shein and their credibility and things like that. But for example, Shein, like those kinds of websites where you find bathing suits for $20.
Yeah.
Great steal. But again, like you said, the quality, it's going to rip apart within the year. It's not good quality. And also when you think about it, for a price that low, I mean, I know a lot of them engage in like child labor things and things like that. And I, for example, when you take my business, I know the factory owner that I'm working with. I know the people that print my bathing suit. I know the ladies that sew my bathing suits, Arcelia, Lucia. Like I know, like I go to them, I thank them.
Right.
I see them working. I know that they're working normal hours, things like that. And it's just not the same, because when I see a bathing suit that's $25, you know, that's their retail price. And if they're making money, that means that they're assembling those bathing suits for maybe like $8, which means that very unfair practices are happening, because it does not even take me $25 to make a bathing suit.
Right.
And that's their retail price. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, and that's the reality of it.
Obviously. Yeah. So if you were making a profit, then that means they're spending way less on that bathing suit, which is like totally unrealistic in my head, because I'm thinking of fabric, you know, fabric is $6.50 per yard. And then like you know, things cost money. Hygiene liners cost money. Cutaway labels cost money. So I just realistically can't fathom how it's so cheap but again, that's something that only goes through my head because I am in it. Right. So for me, I'm like, oh God, like I can't buy a bathing suit from here, because that would be kind of contradicting what I stand for.
Right. No, yeah. And it's important to, I think, just be, again, it's not to say that you can't buy those things, because of course, like you said, we all love a good deal. We all love that. But it's just to be cognizant of the work that goes into what you're creating, because I think people forget the backhand process of that. And for you, Annie, I know obviously you're still growing into Alamea, right? It's still kind of a newborn baby, so to speak, but you are definitely finding your voice. What has that process been like for you to be able to, you know, be this 20-year-old, you know, in her 20s businesswoman in this line that is so saturated with people who have been in this industry for so long, to be able to say like, this is who I am, this is what I want, and this is where I want to go?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing is just being unapologetically myself in the whole process. Like, I know that I'm the most young of the people that I'm competing against in the industry, and I know that I'm possibly the most naive. You know, most of these people, it's not mine. I'm a full-time student. I'm going to law school. Like, this is not my full-time job, as much as that'd be amazing. It's not. And so I have to, because of that, I have to say, like, this is what I do, and I am just as capable as a designer that's been in business for 30 years. And also, it's actually funny. So people will reach out to me on Instagram DM, like photographers and things like that, to work with me. And I mean, most of the time it's just people trying to take advantage for a free suit. I was talking to this photographer the other day, and she was saying, oh, I'm going to be in Miami. I would love to work with you. I have like discounted rates for my shoots this summer. And I love her work. And I very honestly replied, I would love to work with you, and I'll let you know if anything changes. To be completely honest, I have no budget to shoot with you right now. But not to say that I wouldn't want to. And she was like, I love how honest you always are. And I said, well, I mean, in an industry as fake and vague and competitive as the swimwear industry, like, we need all the transparency we can get. So I think that my biggest thing, besides trying to be unapologetically 21 in this business, is that I am always very transparent. I will say exactly why I can't do something if I can't do it. I don't want someone to think I can't work with them. Like, at this point, I have taken so many hits from the first collection that there's no time to try to be anything different. There's no time to try to be vague or not answer someone fully, because I just, if I want people to be transparent with me and I want people to be more collaborative in this industry, it has to start with me. So I basically will say, I'm so sorry, I don't have the money. I'm 21 and I'm doing this by myself, and hopefully we can work together in the future. But yeah, you just got to be transparent.
Yeah, and I think people, like you said, I think people appreciate that more. Like I always say, you know, for me, what's important is like I just try to be as real as possible. You might not like what you see or what you get, but like, you know, it's gonna be real. Like the person, for me in my career, right? Like the person that I hope people see on TV is the same person that they meet in person. Like there's really no difference, right? What are some words that you live by? Obviously you have a full plate, right? You're full-time teacher, full-time student, full-time business owner. What are some of the advice that you kind of go through in your head, or just the words that you live by? What gets you through?
Yeah, I am very much, I mean, as a yogi, I love finding quotes and things. I've made it more of a mission to add these kinds of like wellness things into my day, because I know that I'm very stressed. And besides like taking movement every day, I've tried to make it a point to listen to podcasts. Actually, I've very recently started listening to podcasts, so I'll be listening to yours on my walks from now on.
I'm like,
I've been listening to podcasts about like wellness and entrepreneurship and things like that. I've been trying to meditate, which is very hard for me.
Meditation is not one for me either. I'm not a good slow down person, unfortunately.
I'm not, but you know, there's other types of meditation, not just the type that I think of when I think of meditating. Like there's journaling, there's like writing meditation, things like that, and I think those work better for me. But I think the main things I always say to myself in my head, I think, one, do what makes your soul happy. Like you know, people think you're going to go to law school, you're going to do this, like the very much, you know, the common trajectory. You know, you're going to go to school, you're going to go to college, then law school, then go to law school, then do that, you know. And I don't think it has to be so cookie cutter. Like I think that I can be a lawyer and also be a swimwear owner and also still do yoga on the side. I don't see why I can't do all three. Right. So for me, it's like, don't limit yourself, you know, like if you have several passions, indulge them all. If you want to do something completely different than your profession you've always thought of, do it. You know, if my swim career were to ever take off, I would indulge it. I would say, you know what, I'm always going to have my law degree. I can go indulge this. So I feel like you can't really limit yourself and say you have to do this because it's the norm or what society expects of you. I think that if you like something, you should go for it, and you should give it your all and say, you know, don't give up unless actually just never give up, because you won't stop something unless you know that you've extinguished all your resources and you gave it your all and just didn't work out. Not working out is different. I read something the other day. It was so good. It was actually my podcast, and I write it down as like my meditation.
Oh my God, I do the same thing. When I listen to a really good podcast, I have like, it's back there, but I have notes. And I have notes. Yes, 100%. I do the same thing. Yeah. Share. Give us the.
Yeah. Oh, these were the best. So and I actually really look at these quotes as something I relate to, but one of them was saying, everyone is self-made, only successful people admit it, which is so true. Another one was, she was talking about the difference between giving grace and making excuses, which I think has a lot to do with what I was saying. Like, you know, something can't work out maybe, but it's very different from giving up. You know, you can allow yourself the space to say, okay, this didn't work out, or okay, this isn't working out, but you don't make excuses for it and say, it's because I can't do it, kind of thing. You know, like it's just giving grace versus making excuses. And then I love this one. I've always heard this, but it says, failure is not the opposite of success. The opposite of success is giving up and not trying in the first place. Failure is a part of the process, because without failing and trying things on, you won't truly know what works for you or be able to succeed.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Which I love that.
And if you guys needed a pep talk on this Thursday, you just got it, because Annie just gave you words of wisdom to send you off to indulge in whatever passions you may have. Annie, thank you.
Oh, look at me putting your quote through.
Thank you so much for doing this. If you guys are interested in Alamea or in Annie, I will put her social links down below. And of course, every Thursday we will have a new episode. And if there's somebody that you want to hear from, please let us know in the comments down below. Annie, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.